Hello fellow ham radio operators and YouTubers, welcome. My name is Roly, ZL1BQD. Now, many of you will know that I regularly travel around the Pacific putting on one or more one-man DXpeditions. One question I'm often asked is, what antennas do I use? Well, I use a variety of antennas. The Pacific Islands sure have an abundance of tall coconut trees, so they are a real handy thing to sling dipoles up into. I usually use fan dipoles for multiple bands, normally on 20, 40 to start off with anyway. Then I'm fortunate enough to be able to use the odd commercial tower. Part of my work in the Pacific Islands is to maintain commercial FM broadcast stations, so it is relatively easy to spend a number of hours operating from a transmission hut on a mountain out in the jungle, with dipoles slung at over 60 meters high. But then there are some more normal circumstances where I may be in a village somewhere, and a vertical antenna would be far more appropriate. And that is where the DX Commander series of antennas come in. Nearly 3 years ago I approached Callum from DX Commander and took one of the classics to Papua New Guinea with me. It operated beautifully. The only drawback was that its pack-down size was rather large. It would not fit into the overhead lockers of any aircraft that I travelled on, particularly the internal aircraft, which are quite small. So that meant trying to carry another piece of luggage. Now that's fine for getting out of New Zealand, but an extra box always attracts attention, meaning you're going to pay for that, sir. So after approaching Callum yet again, we developed the DXpedition model, which now fits into my suitcase, which means out of sight, out of mind. The Expedition model is absolutely fabulous. It really does the job well for me. However, I really wanted to have a no-fuss solution for 80 meters. The inverted L is one way to go, but that meant packing yet another element, adding precious weight to my already weighty luggage. Ideally, I wanted to use what I already have somehow. So I developed a loading coil on a sleeve which slides over the bottom of the DX Commander. Moreover, I wanted to use the elements I already had, so I base loaded the 40 meter element. So that has become known as the Roly Coil. And many people have asked for details as to how I have built this, and so here goes. Pull up a chair, grab a cup of coffee, join me as we make a Roly's Coil together. Okay, our first stop is a local hardware supplier. We're off to buy some 50mm inside diameter PVC pipe. The piping used for normal low pressure plumbing. For those in the USA, that's 2-inch inside diameter. Now I'm buying a 6-meter length because I want to make a number of these coils for future projects, such as phased verticals and possibly a 4-square on 80 meters. A few spare coils certainly don't go astray anyway, do they? You'll need a piece of pipe about 300mm long. It's 12 inches long for our US friends. You'll also need various bits and pieces of hardware such as nuts, bolts, washers, wing nuts, and I recommend stainless steel for all of that. And of course some wire. I recommend either 1mm enamel covered transformer wire or a length of D10 wire as supplied by DX Commander. And I'll put some links in the description below there, and you'll need approximately 8 meters of wire. Now my good friend Mike, M0MSN, has put together an excellent video of him making one of these coils in a different fashion to the way that I construct them. And I've put a link below so you can have a look at his method as well. Okay, now that we have all the materials, It's off to visit my friendly engineer down the road. He owns a metal lathe that is capable of thread cutting. We need to cut a thread on the outside of this pipe, 1 millimetre wide by 1 millimetre deep, and the thread pitch needs to be 5 millimetres. So we require a total of 50 turns along the pipe. We then drill a 6 millimetre hole at each end of the thread, and now we have the pipe prepared, ready for winding. I like to pre-terminate the wire with a 6 millimetre ring terminal, and that's just simply so that we can anchor that wire onto the PVC tubing with a 6 millimetre bolt. This is just a temporary measure to start off with, so we can determine where we want the taps. So at this stage I'll fix the wire and then proceed to wind on about 15 turns. Winds on very easily because the wire will just simply follow the 1 millimetre groove that we have previously cut into the tube. So wind on about 15 turns. That gives us enough turns to play with to start off with. Now I'll take a white marker and I'll mark off 8 turns from the start of the coil. Hopefully the marker will work for me. 6, 7 and 8. So 8 turns from the beginning, we'll put a mark. Likewise another mark at 10 turns. And another mark at 12 turns. This then will allow us the CW end of the band, mid band, and of course the signal sideband end of the band. Having marked where we want the taps, we then unwind the coil and take the wire to the workbench so we can attach the taps. If you're using 1 millimetre enamel covered wire, then you'll have to scrape back the enamel and at the tap points. Pre-tin the bare wire before soldering the taps in place. Yes, my ears friends, there is an L in the word solder. I'm using D10, so I have carefully cut back the insulation, tinned the exposed wire, and soldered the taps in place. I'm using automotive spade connectors for my taps. At this stage I like to wind the coil again, just to make sure that the taps are going to end up on the former exactly where I want them to be. And then in the final winding, I use a little bit of hot glue just to hold the terminal in place as I'm winding it. And so there's terminal number 1 in place, terminal number 2, a little bit of hot glue down, and then pull the second terminal into that hot glue, hold it down firmly, wait until it cools down of course, and that'll hold that terminal in position very, very firmly indeed. And so the same thing for the third terminal. A little bit of hot glue, and then pull the terminal firmly into that hot glue. And so continue on until all 3 spade terminals are in position. And those are the tap points for the 3 positions on the 80 metre band. Continue winding on all the rest of the turns and terminate the coil with a 6 millimetre bolt. We now add the rest of the hardware and tighten the nuts at both ends of the coil. The blue fly lead is terminated at one end with a automotive spade connector plug, and the other end of the wire we terminate that with a 6 millimetre ring connector, which goes to the driven element of the DX Commander. The black lead is terminated at both ends with a 6mm ring connectors. One end goes to the bottom of the coil, the other end of that wire goes to the ground plane of the DX commander. At the top end of the coil, I use a wing nut to make it easy to connect into the end of the 40-meter element. So when you want to use this, use the 80-meter coil, we disconnect the 40-meter element from the ground plane and connect it to the top of the coil. So there we be. That's how to build a Roly's coil. Another way to get your DX Commander Classic or your DX Commander Expedition onto 80 meters. It's an ideal solution really for those who are space limited and find it difficult to put up an inverted L or a dipole for 80 meters. But I hear you say, does it work? Well, here's an SWR plot for this arrangement, and you can see that the SWR is very good indeed. The bandwidth is narrow, but no narrower than expected for a quarter wave vertical. That is why we have the 3 taps, so that you can choose the optimum tuning for your favourite part of the band. In reality, should your rig have an auto tuner, you can use the centre tap, and the tuner will flatten out the ends very, very nicely for you. So, I'll close this video with a PSK reporter display showing the coverage that has been achieved lately. I think you'll agree that it's quite impressive from here in New Zealand. Thank you for watching this video, and please consider subscribing. Press the little bell, that way I can notify you when I release my next video. You may also like to press the like button, and please feel free to share this video with your fellow ham radio operators. Until next time then, Best 73, take care. Bye now.